Welcome back. You're watching the ET Money Show, and it's time for the Travel Thursday segment, something that I look forward to every week because, at least virtually, I'm able to travel to a different destination every week. Today, we're going to be talking about Sri Lanka, and joining me from Sri Lanka, incidentally, is Aakanksha Monga, who is a travel vlogger and a content creator. Thank you so much, Aakanksha, for taking the time. I was hoping to see coconut trees in the background, but you tell me that it's raining outside. Why Sri Lanka? What's so special about it?
Hey Alex, firstly, thank you for having me, and super excited to be here and talk about Sri Lanka because I'm absolutely in love with this country. Well, why Sri Lanka? Honestly, number one, it's very, very close to our country, and it was just always super convenient to get here when it comes to even the restrictions that we have to kind of navigate through now with the new world. I think Sri Lanka was one of the destinations that was kind of more like opening up to tourism more and more. And also, I feel like the budget, it's super budgeted, and I'm someone who really likes to, backpack around countries. And this just suits, like, it was just the perfect fit for everything.
One need to bear in mind in terms of travel? I'm guessing that flights are easy to come by. What do you need to know in terms of visa? I think being one of the neighbors that is very close to India, you don't need to worry too much about those things, right?
Not at all, actually. You just have to, like, I literally got my visa within 2 minutes. There's just one site that you need to go on to, which is the Sri Lankan ETA site where you can get your visa. Flights are super cheap as well. They range from anywhere between 10 to 20K. So if you're ever planning on, I mean, this is for all the viewers that if they're planning on sort of budgeting for a trip to Sri Lanka, they can really stick to the lower end as well as if they want to go to the higher end, that's completely fine. But when you're sticking to the lower end, you've got really cheap flights. The visa costs almost just like around 2,000 rupees. So there's barely any costs involved when you're traveling to Sri Lanka. And even as a country in itself, within the country, budgeting is very, very easy. And I'm someone who comes from a financial background, so this is something that's super close to me. So be it the transportation, taxi, buses are actually the cheapest mode of transportation here, cost anywhere around 30 to 50 rupees for longer distances, which is absolutely insane. While taxis are slightly more expensive and would be recommended to more like say luxury travelers. But the one cool thing that I did while I was here is that I rented a tuk-tuk, which is basically an auto for us in India, and drove along the south coast. The rent was pretty good. I mean, it was around 10 to $15 a day, but I think that's great as a new experience to travel solo by yourself along the south coast in a tuk-tuk.
Oh, yeah, that sounds incredible. I want to talk a little bit more about your experiences within Sri Lanka because it's, if you think about it, much smaller than other places that you can visit, and I'm guessing that you can cover quite a bit in a short period of time. One, how much time would you recommend people should spend in Sri Lanka? How much time should they budget for? And what are the various places that they absolutely should see?
100%. So, I mean, while I feel like no country can be covered in a couple of days, I'm here for actually a month and a half, and I still feel like that's a very short time. But having said that, I think around 10 days for a vacation would be good. Probably budgeting around 5 days for the south coast and 5 days for the inland area. So when I say south coast, it's dotted along, like south coast is dotted with like beautiful beaches. Some of the places that I absolutely recommend is starting with Gaul, Ahangama, then moving on to Mirisa, Dikkala, and then Tangal. These are the five places that I would say make note of. I didn't spend too much time in Colombo, which is the capital city, because you should probably do that when you're heading back, because you anyway have to take your flight out of there. So probably, but take that one day for Colombo, and the rest of the 5 days should definitely be inland, which is where you can see the hills, you can trek, you can go to waterfalls. So you see a completely different topography altogether and a completely different culture as well. So when you go to the hills, the one place that I definitely recommend going to is Ella. Even though it's spoken about a lot, it's still a wonderful and it's a beautiful place. There's also Nuara area, which was earlier said to be like the Britishers' paradise, but apparently it's like one of the most beautiful hill stations there as well. Then there's also Mahimliana, which is an area where you can actually see the culture. There's a museum which kind of showcases the tribal life over there as well. And then you have Knuckles Range, which is not a very frequently spoken about destination, but they've got beautiful hikes. They've got a beautiful tea estate area, and also some wonderful waterfalls, which I absolutely love.
You know, while you were speaking, we were also showcasing some of the pictures that you've taken on your trip, and it seems like a paradise to go to, and the sheer beauty of nature there is very visually stirring. I want to talk about the expense of staying there. You're spending a month there, which is a significant amount of time. Are there options for everybody? And I also think that the currency is favorable, right? Because the rupee is stronger.
Yes, 100%. So I think for me, when I was staying, that was stay and food are always the two biggest costs when you're traveling to every country. So that's the one thing that you need to keep in mind before going there, kind of like budgeting for that. So I'll touch upon stay first. So there is, if you're going for a shorter vacation and you want to go towards the luxury sides of things, you definitely have like a bunch of beautiful stays all across, be it like beach resorts or be it really beautiful stays up north in the inland area and like lamps as well. And those would cost you anywhere around, let's say, starting from at least around 10,000 rupees, going upwards, and like then it's just you and your imagination. And secondly, we have budget stays where the ones that I've picked since I'm here for a very long time. So there are budget stays that are starting from just 600 rupees, which is absolutely crazy. And they're basically homestays, hostels, homestays with private rooms, and your personal washroom can cost you just around 600 to 700 rupees per night, which is absolutely wonderful. And you also get to stay with the local family. So I would definitely recommend trying something out. And secondly, when it comes to probably slightly, if someone's working out of here similar to how what I'm doing, probably picking a co-working, co-living space would be the ideal situation. So those cost somewhere around, let's say, 1,500 to 2,000 per night, which I still feel are great because you get great access to great Wi-Fi, sorry, and also like good food and a good stay. So that's how the stay is placed. Coming to the food, which is the other big expense because you're having 3 meals a day, I would definitely recommend picking local food, because local food is healthy, it's cheap, and there are a lot of vegetarian options available as well. I'm someone who started eating more and more vegetarian food, and I've just absolutely loved the food here. And the food is very very cheap, so it starts from around 40 to 50 rupees and can go upwards to max 200, which is great if you're a budget traveler. But you also have some wonderful restaurants serving food from all around the world, because what's happened in Sri Lanka is that it's a melting pot of people from all around the world who've opened up their cafes, opened up their restaurants. So you can eat Turkish food one day, you can eat French food another day. So that's another thing you could definitely try out.
Akanksha, you know, I'm so excited to ask you about the food because we were showing pictures of the hoppers, and that's something I really want to try.
Yes.
But before we get to that, I want to ask about the co-working spaces, because I think we're at the end of what has been a trying period, but it's also provided a lot of opportunities for people who can take their work to various other places and not get affected, to experience new places, right? So, which areas in Sri Lanka are best suited for this? I would think closer to the capital.
You're bang on. So definitely the capital has some wonderful places to work out of. But that is what I thought as well, that I might struggle while I was in the South Coast, because who can work alongside a beach with great Wi-Fi, right? But contrary to popular beliefs, I found some great co-working spaces around here. I was recently at this place called Digbella, or very close to Hiriketia Beach, again, very one of the pretty popular surf beaches over here. Surfing is very big, and they've got a lot of these surf, co-live, co-work spaces, and there the Wi-Fi is amazing. We had a power cut for around 4 hours the other day, and I didn't even realize, because the place had backup, the place had great Wi-Fi, and I'm able to speak to you from with the beach behind me. So it's pretty good.
I was looking forward to when I said coconut trees, but let's talk about the food. Let's talk about the food because there's so much to talk about, right? You have hoppers, you have so much coconut in the cuisine. Tell us a little bit about it.
So personally, I absolutely really love the hoppers, but my favorite thing here is called, it's actually just a roti, but the way they make it is very interesting. It's basically like a little sandwich that they make with the rotis, and they make really yummy fillings with everything. And they serve this really good, I would say like sprinkled chili with coconut on the side. So you can definitely expect some really yummy coconut with everything that they serve. And that I think is absolutely my favorite thing here. They've also got some great dal and rice, which again I thought may be very, very similar to India, but it's actually very different. So that's the one thing that I've seen that I definitely thought, and I think that's the reason why I've seen very few Indian tourists here, surprisingly, is that maybe a lot of us believe that it's going to be very, very similar to how India is, but honestly, it's different. Like the culture is different, the food is different, people are different, and I would 100% recommend everyone to come here, visit, and see for themselves.
You know, I'm not even lying to you. I'm serious. I'm extremely hungry. Just looking at those pictures has stimulated my taste buds already. But tell us about the few other things in terms of the activities that you can do there. You mentioned surfing. You mentioned treks. If I'm not mistaken, there's also a national park that you can go to.
Yes, yes, 100%. And I think one tip to all of my viewers, I love our viewers here, would be that when you're picking a national park, so the country has a lot of national parks, lots of safaris, but I think it's very important to also see which safari is kind of sustainable and treating the animals properly. So I think doing your research there is great because over tourism can lead to so many things that you probably don't want. So that is one tip that I would definitely give. But otherwise, we have snorkeling here as well. You can also go scuba diving. And but one thing that everyone I think we should definitely try, and I'm also going to try towards the end of my trip, is surfing. It's a very cheap lesson that costs only around 500 to 1,000 rupees per session. And I think it's just the place to do it because when you come here and when you go along the south coast, you're just going to see so many surfers. Another very exciting activity is zip lining across the tea gardens, which happens more towards the inland England, and that's absolutely stunning because they put you over a really cool height and send you across a zip line. So that's another thing that I'd recommend trying, and also going for a couple of waterfall hikes. And of course, the one thing that's not to miss, and I think it's like the postcard picture of Sri Lanka, is going by the train and traveling by the trains through the inland areas, which is like from Ella to Nuara area. And I'm so excited to go on that soon.
So many of those experiences are postcard experiences. Thank you so much for joining in and for taking the time for painting that picture for us. Pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right.